Day 1, Wednesday 28th of September. Chapter 1. Hannah. Hannah's heart beat hard and fast in her chest. She checked the time so often it was driving her crazy, but she couldn't help it. The back of her hoodie was still wet from before, which was annoying because it reminded her of how close she'd been and how lame she was, for forgetting her jacket, for letting him stop her and ending up back inside the dumb summer house. She looked at the clock on the wall above Riles and Coop's. Not even a minute had passed. She was going to explode. What if it all went wrong? She'd be totally devo, that's for sure. There might not be another chance. She checked the time and took a breath that hiccuped. 4:07 p.m. It could already be too late. On the outskirts of Ballarat, a vibration against Senior Constable John Franklin's hip signalled a text message. He hooked his mobile and eased it out of his pocket, while his eyes never left the house across the road. Bull Jenkins would have his balls on a plate if he fucked up the surveillance job, which wouldn't be a good start to his detective training, especially if he ended up posted here full-time after DTS. Another tremor through the phone meant he'd received a second message. Just then, the detective beside him pulled out his own mobile and took a call in a low voice. Franklin used the opportunity to check his messages. The first was short, typical of his daughter Kat. All good, later, K, kiss kiss. The second was longer, just as typical of Sam Tesserino, the constable under his wing. Kids settled, weather awful but all going well, places posh. Wish you were here, not fair after all our planning. Speak later, Sam. He slid the phone away, relieved that the camp had kicked off well. Still, the acid wash in his stomach marked his disappointment that Tim Lunny, his sergeant at Daylesford, had to step into his place. In Mount Dandenong, about 200 kilometres from Ballarat, the door of the summer house opened, letting in another blast of cold air. Georgie Harvey shrugged deeper into her leather jacket as Kat Franklin and Josh Curtis entered. She watched the response to the teenagers from the 4 families of younger kids spread across the room. Several visibly sparked up, and little Cooper sang out, "Josh!" That was exactly why they'd been included. The teens bridged the gap between the kids and other camp supervisors. Josh waved to the boy while he flicked rainwater from his cropped hair. He turned to fire Kat a grin, and Georgie's antennae picked up interesting vibes, especially when Kat ducked her chin and Josh rubbed the tattoo trailing his neck. Georgie realised that by occupational hazard she'd slipped into journalist mode, standing back to note the conversations, dynamics, body language, and other nuances happening around her. Unlike the Camp Sylvan instructor, Seb, who hunkered down to talk with 2 sisters, his manner easy even though the girls stayed subdued. They were lucky to have him too, being over-compliment on the supervisor-to-child ratio after the last-minute dropout of 3 kids. Georgie's mind jumped back to her role on camp. She wasn't here to research a story. The hope was that she'd help these kids express themselves through words instead of internalising their troubles, though she realised they'd probably rather play outside. Her eyes grew. If the weather didn't let up, outdoor activities would be off, and she'd be up for more than she'd imagined. Josh sidetracked her with, "Who wants popcorn? It's ready in the kitchen." Or Twister in the library. He leapt aside to let everyone past, landing on the balls of his feet. The physicality of the teenage boxing coach reminded Georgie of a panther. Sprinting from the summer house to the main building, Sam Tesserino yelled, "Who's going to get there first?" She and Sarge Lunny led the race, but pretended they couldn't keep up, and soon let most of the group overtake them. Sam half-turned when Cooper and Riley circled back, but drizzle blurred her sight. She knew Kat and Josh were to follow at the rear and would look after them, so she continued to jog across the waterlogged lawn as a curtain of fog rolled in. The next minutes were bedlam, as they all kicked off their shoes and dried themselves with extra-large towels that they dropped in a mound in the laundry before splitting in different directions. Sam headed for the kitchen, stepping back as Noah and Tom whizzed around the island bar giggling. Technically, they weren't running, and the owner of Upper Long House, Mr. Belfridge, had left with a case and suit bag shortly after they'd arrived, so she grinned. What he doesn't know won't hurt him.